I went camping about a week ago. I wanted a break from my boring office job. I thought the woods would help me feel alive again. I set up my tent near a cozy fire pit. The sound of nature was calming. I felt ready for a fun time with friends. That first night, we gathered around the fire. Drinks in our hands, we started sharing ghost stories. Laughter filled the air until I heard something rustling in the trees. I looked, but saw nothing. It made me uneasy, but I didn't want to ruin the vibe. I pushed it aside and focused on the stories. Later, around midnight, I heard it again. This time I felt a chill in the air. Was it footsteps? I looked around. My friends were still caught up in their stories, but the hairs on my neck stood up. I wondered if my imagination was working overtime. The next day we went hiking. The trees loomed over us like giants. I was trying to shake off the unease, laughing along with my friends. But something caught my eye, a shadow moving between the trunks. I turned to say something, but they weren't paying attention. When I glanced back, it was gone. Maybe I was imagining things. That night, after even more ghost stories, the fun faded. It felt like something was watching me. Whispers floated through the air, soft and eerie. I couldn't understand the words, but I sensed their meaning. They felt like echoes of my own fears. I tossed and turned in my sleeping bag. My friends were arguing now, over small things. I needed to leave, but something called me toward the trees. Then I saw her, the woman in the trees. She stood there, barely revealing herself in the moonlight. My heart raced. I wanted to scream, but the words wouldn't come out. Then she swayed like branches in the wind. I blinked and she vanished. My friends were suddenly gone. I felt panic. "Guys!" I shouted, but there was no reply. It was just me and the darkness now. I heard Mark's shaky voice. It sounded so near. "Why are you with her?" he asked. I whipped around expecting to see someone, but I was alone. Just the trees, still and waiting. The air felt heavy, pushing down on me. Was it the woman? What did Mark mean? I felt a chill creeping up my spine, the dread growing inside of me. I wanted to call for my friends again, but my throat tightened. I was paralyzed, trapped in that moment. The whispers returned, wrapping around me, pulling me deeper into the woods. I couldn't escape them. There was a rustle nearby. My breath caught in my chest. I knew then something was wrong. Something was watching me still, hidden behind the trees. I couldn't shake the feeling it wanted me to confront it. But I didn't have the strength to move. I waited, my heart pounding, unsure what would come next. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen. But then, in a moment that felt like a lifetime, the whispers stopped. The air grew silent, heavy with tension. I finally found my legs, turning slowly towards the path I'd taken earlier. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over unseen roots. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I dashed toward the tent, the only thing between me and the suffocating dark. As I ran, the shadows along the trees seemed to stretch towards me, taunting me. I could swear I heard a soft laughter, blending with the rustle of leaves. No, it wasn't my imagination. My skin prickled, sensing that presence again. I reached the tent and tore it open. Inside, I fumbled for my phone. My hands shook as I turned on the flashlight feature. The beam sliced through the darkness, but all I saw were walls of fabric and the sleeping bags of my friends. I called out for them again, fear flooding my voice. "Guys!" Still nothing, just silence. I swung the flashlight around, searching for any sign of them, but the only sound was the distant crackle of the dying fire outside. My stomach twisted. Where had they gone? I mustered the courage to peek out of the tent. That's when I saw it, a flicker of white between the trees. Not just the woman from before, but something more intense, something that pulled at me. I stepped out of the tent, holding the light in front of me. My instincts screamed to run back inside, but curiosity anchored me in place. "Who's there?" I called, my voice shaking. The beam of light caught glimpses of movement. The shadows danced around me like they had a life of their own. I turned to the right, and then I saw her again just beyond the edge. She wore a flowing white dress, almost blending with the mist rising from the ground. Her hair hung down, wild as if it had never been tamed by human hands. She looked at me, and for a moment, I felt entranced. But then the feeling shifted. I sensed something darker behind her. A warning, a threat that pressed down against my chest. "Leave," I heard it whisper. No words, just a clear thought that caused a chill to race through my veins. Before I could react, the light flickered and died. I was plunged into darkness. Panic seized me. I turned, scrambling back into the tent, but as I did, I saw those familiar faces, all my friends huddled together, sleeping like nothing happened. "Wake up," I yelled, but their expressions didn't change. I shook Mark, the closest to me. His eyes opened slowly, but there was a vacant look on his face. "Where's everyone?" he muttered, like he hadn't heard me try to call them before. I glanced back toward the trees, my gut twisting. The woman was gone, but I knew she hadn't left. Something stirred in the depths of the woods, something dark and unsettling. The sense of foreboding wrapped tightly around me. Then everything went dark again, not just the light. The night seemed to swallow sound, even the whispering wind. "Guys, please! We need to leave now," I urged, my voice slicing through the eerie silence. But deep down, I wondered if it was too late to escape whatever had been awakened in the woods. A crack broke the stillness, like a branch snapping. Just then the whispers returned, angrier this time, more insistent, closing in around us. I felt trapped, uncertain of what would happen next. What had I awakened? I couldn't shake the sense of dread gripping me. The whispers built up into a cacophony, louder now, swirling around the tent like a wild storm. "Guys!" My voice cracked as I repeated myself, desperation clawing at my throat. They lay there, oblivious, and I felt even more alone. I needed to know what was happening outside, what was waiting for me in the dark. Summoning every shred of courage, I rose and unzipped the tent. The cold air hit me like a slap. I pointed my phone into the darkness, the beam shaky as it roamed over the trees. The shadows shifted. I blinked, and suddenly I wasn't alone. There were figures standing among the trees, their forms blurred and indistinct. My heart raced as I strained to make out their features. Panic surged again. "Who are you?" I shouted into the night. But the figures remained silent, their eyes flickering like dying embers. I stepped forward, drawn by a force I couldn't understand. The woman from before came into focus, her white dress glowing in the darkness, contrasting sharply against the trees. But something had changed. Her face twisted in a snarl, a haunting contrast to the serene figure I had seen earlier. "Help us," she rasped, her voice low and urgent, a far cry from the gentleness that had once soothed me. There was an urgency in her tone, a broken plea that sent chills racing down my spine. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, the ground beneath me seemed to tremble. A loud crash echoed from deeper in the woods, as though something heavy was falling. The figures shifted, their eyes widening in unison. They were no longer just shadows. They looked agitated, trapped within the trees. I stumbled back, colliding with the soft fabric of the tent. "Mark, Sarah, wake up!" My voice turned frenzied as I scrambled back into the safety of the tent. I shook Mark again, harder this time. "You have to get up. We need to go." His eyes fluttered open fully for the first time, a flicker of awareness breaking through the fog. "What's happening?" he asked, panic etched across his face. "Something in the woods. They're not just shadows." I glanced back toward the entrance. The figures were gone, but the whispers continued, now sounding more like a chant, a dreadful rhythm that resonated in my bones. "We're not safe here." "Where's everyone else?" he asked, voice trembling. I swallowed hard. "I don't know. They're gone. It's just us now." Mark looked around, trying to comprehend. I could see it dawning on him, the realization that we might be alone against whatever was out there. "We have to find them. We can't just stay here," he urged. "Mark, listen to me. We can't," I shouted, the urgency in my voice palpable. They're not normal. There's something wrong with this place." Before he could respond, we heard it again. A rustle closer to the tent, followed by a distinct whispering, one that felt as if it were coiling around us, closing in. The shadows moved as we watched, forming shapes that crawled beneath the dim light of my phone. The tent felt claustrophobic, like a prison. My heart raced again and I took a breath, ready to run if I had to. We need to move. Now. But just as I reached for the zipper, something scraped against the tent's fabric from outside. A whisper brushed against my ear, warmer but no less chilling. Help them. I turned to look at Mark, who was staring wide-eyed at the entrance. What do we do? He asked, voice trembling. I took a step back. I don't know, but whatever it is, it wants us to help. And that's when I thought I saw a familiar face among those shadows, beckoning me, one I never wanted to see again. My mind raced as the urgency of the situation crashed against my fears. I had to make a decision. We can't stay here, I said firmly, forcing the words past my trembling lips. We need to find the others, or get out of this place. Are you serious? Mark shot back, voice rising. You'd rather face whatever that is out there? We don't even know what we're dealing with. I grabbed the flashlight and pointed it at him, my hands shaking. We can't wait for them. They might already be. The shadows flickered just outside our tent again. The whispering escalated, turned chaotic, an agonized mantra woven with desperation. Help us, help us. Stop, I shouted into the darkness. What do you want? But my voice echoed back, swallowed by the night unanswered. I can't take this anymore, Mark stammered. What if? Before he could finish, the fabric of the tent bulged. An unseen force pressed against it, like something from outside was pushing in. I gasped and staggered back, panic unraveling my reason. Get away from there, I shouted, but Mark didn't move. Then, in that terrifying instant, I saw it, a shape human enough to be almost familiar. The woman in the white dress, her eyes hollow, stared at us through the tension of the fabric. Help them, she mouthed, her words silent yet agonizingly clear. My heart dropped as I recognized the plea. Get down, I screamed at Mark, lunging across the tent to push him to the ground. A sound like tearing fabric filled the air. The stakes anchoring our tent splintered as a gust burst through, ripping it open. Light poured in, illuminating the chaos. Outside, the forest twisted beneath an otherworldly glow. The figures in the trees were now clear, their faces contorted in sorrow, agony etched onto their features. Help us, they chorused, a chorus of sorrowful voices. I couldn't breathe. My instinct screamed at me to flee, but my feet felt glued to the ground. The man I thought I saw among the shadows lingered, a wretched link to memories I yearned to forget. Sarah, we have to go. Mark grabbed my arm, pain and urgency flooding his voice. Now! Suddenly, a deep rumble echoed through the woods. The ground shook harder, and I knew we didn't have much time. Whatever was drawing us in was also threatening to explode, to consume us. No, I shouted, fighting against the pull of the shadows. We can't leave them. Mark's grip tightened. They're not what you think they are. We have to find a way out. Realizing the fear in his eyes mirrored my own, I finally tore away from where the woman's image flickered. I took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage. Okay, then we run, but not into the trees. We scrambled out of the tent, the world feeling impossibly big and dark just as another crash rang out. This way, I hollered, moving away from the oppressive shadows. Just then, I heard it again, clear as day. Help us! And with that, I knew things were worse than we thought. As we burst into the clearing beyond the tent, dread seeped into my bones. But in the darkness beside the trees, I realized something new. I wasn't just running from the shadows. I might have been chasing them. We sprinted through the clearing, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear anything else. The woods around us loomed with twisted darkness, yet the glowing silhouettes of those figures still called to me, haunting my every step. Sarah, focus! Mark yelled, pulling me away from their reach. We kept moving, dodging branches that clawed at me like the hands of the lost souls begging for release. Just up ahead, I spotted a faint glow that seemed to slice through the gloom. Hope ignited inside me, but dread pushed back. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever awaited us in that light might be just as dangerous as the shadows behind us. Is that? Mark's voice trailed off as we approached the source. The light flickered, revealing what appeared to be the remnants of a campfire, but it wasn't just the embers that caught my attention. Look, I pointed to something lying in the dirt near the fire. My heart dropped into my stomach. It was a backpack, ours. I rushed forward, fear mingling with urgency as I desperately unzipped it. It was a tangle of items I barely recognized in the chaos of our earlier retreat. A flashlight, snacks, and a first aid kit. I rifled through it, panic rising again. Where's my phone? We don't have time, Mark urged, his eyes darting nervously to the trees. They're coming closer. But I couldn't leave behind my phone. It was my only connection to the outside world, my lifeline. I dug deeper and finally found it buried within the fabric. The screen was cracked, but it still turned on. Yes, I almost shouted with relief. Now what? Mark's voice was thick with urgency. We need to move before they find us. Let me try to call for help, I said, already pulling the phone to my ear. No signal. My heart sank. I hurried to check the flashlight and found it dim but working. I handed it to Mark while I dialed again, pressing my luck and trying to reach anyone, even if I knew the chances were slim. But as I stared at the screen, the glow reflected back at me, revealing the shadowy edges of our surroundings. That's when I saw it. Something moving at the edge of the trees just beyond the campfire's reach. A figure. A familiar figure. Mark, I breathed, feeling the air grow cold. It's her. The woman from my nightmares, the one in the white dress, emerged from the darkness, her eyes empty but somehow more intense now. She stepped closer, her form illuminated by the flicker of the dying fire. Help them, she whispered, just as she had before, but now there was no mistaking it. Her face was twisted into something more terrifying, her expression a mix of sorrow and rage. Stay back, Mark shouted as I took a step forward, drawn to her against every instinct I had. My body trembled, wanting to bridge the distance. Something about her was pulling me, like a thread through my heart. Sarah, don't! Mark's voice cut through my daze, panic resurfacing as he stepped in front of me, blocking my view. But I could still hear her whisper. The ground trembled again, shaking the leaves and sending a wild gust through the clearing. As Mark struggled to pull me away, shadows began to swirl around us, encroaching from the trees. The light of the campfire flickered, and then went dark. And everything went dark. I felt the weight of silence press down on me. Pitch black surrounded us, swallowing every sound and feeling. It was suffocating. I couldn't even register where Mark had gone. The warmth from the campfire faded, leaving only a chill that snaked up my spine. Mark? I whispered, straining to hear any reply. The darkness felt alive, swirling and whispering around me. I fumbled for my phone, hoping the faint light would guide me back to him. My heart raced as I turned it on, the screen barely illuminating the chaos. Over here! I heard Mark's voice call out, shaky but alive. I followed the sound, my fingers brushing against the damp bark of tree trunks as I wove through the unseen. When I finally found him, relief washed over me. He was crouched low, eyes wide, scanning our surroundings. What happened? He gasped. The fear etched on his face was unmistakable. I don't know, I admitted, still looking around, half expecting the woman in the white dress to appear again. The fire just went out. Mark shook his head. Something's not right here. We have to keep moving. I glanced back towards where the campfire had been. Even retracing our steps bore an unsettling weight. The air felt thicker. And then there it was again. The whisper, seductive and familiar. Help them. My skin prickled as the sound echoed through the darkness. Mark, did you hear that? Of course I heard that, he snapped, his eyes darting nervously. We need to go, now. But I couldn't shake off the feeling of urgency that rose within me. What if she's trying to warn us? I said, my nerves taut. Warn us, or lead us into a trap, Mark shot back. This isn't a time for logic. We need to find a way out. A sudden rustle in the trees made us both freeze. The shadows shifted again, merging closer, wrapping around us like a predator circling its prey. I felt my breath catch in my throat. "Which way?" I asked, panic rising within me. The darkness was closing in, each second feeling heavier than the last. "We can't stay here." Mark pointed toward the sound, a deep tremor in his voice. "This way. We need to go before—" Before what? I didn't want to finish that thought. I didn't want to acknowledge the danger that could be lurking just beneath the surface. We pushed ahead, following the echoes of rustling leaves. Then, like a cruel joke, the whispers grew louder. "Help them! Help them!" I stumbled, my foot catching on a root, and I barely caught myself. "Mark, what do they want from us?" "I don't know." He glanced around, his hands clenched tight. "But we're getting out of here. Keep running." As we sprinted deeper into the woods, branches lashed at us like angry spirits. Just when I thought the whispers would drown us in a tide of despair, we broke through to a small clearing. But it wasn't the safety I hoped for. In the center lay something dark and twisted, a gnarled tree, but it was the figures around it that made my blood run cold. "That's them," Mark gasped, his face draining of color. I knew at once who they were, the lost souls from my nightmares. "We have to go back," I shouted, but the figures began to close in. "Sarah!" Mark grabbed my arm, his grip firm with determination. "We need to fight these things or we won't get out alive." I was terrified. What if the woman in white had been an omen? What would the spirits do if they caught us? A new surge of fear and resolve coursed through me. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was a fight for our lives. Then it hit me. If that woman wanted help, maybe it was time to figure out what she meant. But how? The figures surrounded the gnarled tree, their movements slow and deliberate. I felt like a deer caught in headlights, unable to look away. But Mark was right. It was time to act. "We can't just stand here," I said, my voice rising with urgency. I focused on the nearest spirit, the way its hollow eyes seemed to radiate sadness and anger in equal measure. The whispers were clearer now, almost begging us. "Help them." "How?" Mark shouted back, panic edging into his voice. "What do we do?" I glanced at the twisted roots of the tree, dark and knotted like the very souls trapped around it. Maybe we need to understand their pain. Mark shot me a look that mixed disbelief with desperation. "Understand their pain? Are you serious?" "They're not attacking us, right?" I countered, lowering my voice to a whisper. "They feel trapped. What if we can find out what they want? What if we can help them?" "Help? How?" His eyes darted around, brimming with fear. "You really believe we can just talk our way out of this?" "I don't know, but we can't wait for them to decide what to do. We have to try." Mark hesitated, weighing my words. He finally nodded, albeit reluctantly. "Okay, let's do it quickly." I took a step toward the figures, heart racing with each breath. As I approached, the whispers shifted to a chorus of pleas. I swallowed hard but kept going until I stood directly in front of the nearest spirit. "What do you want?" I asked, forcing myself to maintain steady eye contact. "How can we help you?" The spirit tilted its head, and for a moment I felt an overwhelming sense of sorrow wash over me. "Help us. Free us," it whispered. "Release our pain." "What does that mean?" I pressed, hoping for clarity even amidst the chaos. A low growl erupted from somewhere behind the spirits, a warning or perhaps a threat. Mark took a step back, his breath hitching in his throat. "Sarah, I don't like this." "Just give me a second," I yelled. The urgency had swallowed me whole, and I knew I had to keep pressing. "What do you need us to do?" Then the whispers coalesced. The tree, the curse. Suddenly the ground beneath us trembled, shaking the forest. The spirits shifted, their forms becoming more defined, more desperate. I could feel the anger rising in the air around us like a storm about to break. "Mark!" I screamed, but there was no time. A crack opened at the base of the tree, a darkness spilling out, like a shadow seeking something. "Run!" Mark shouted, pulling me back. "We have to go now!" But I couldn't. I was drawn to the opening, a curiosity mixed with dread. What lay beneath this cursed root? What could possibly hold these souls prisoner? "Sarah!" Mark tugged my arm, panic evident in his voice. "You can't stay! We need to move!" And then, just when I thought I'd figure it out, the shadow erupted, writhing, echoing with voices of the damned. Their wails filled the night and my mind went blank. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, my body lying on damp leaves and my ears ringing with silence. Gone were the wails that had surrounded me moments before. I blinked against the dim light filtering through the trees. Mark was beside me, his face pale and drawn. "Sarah, you're awake." Relief washed over him as he helped me sit up. What happened? My throat was dry and I struggled to piece together my thoughts. "I don't know," he said. Panic still lingered in his voice. Then that thing came out and I just pulled you away." He looked over his shoulder, as if half expecting to see something emerge from the shadows again. I thought we were done for. I pushed my hair out of my face, my heart racing. The crack in the tree had felt like a mouth opening wide, ready to swallow us whole. "What was that?" I asked, fighting the growing sense of dread. "The shadow?" Mark glanced back at the gnarled tree looming behind us. "Whatever that was, it wasn't friendly. We need to get out of here." I didn't want to leave. Part of me felt compelled to understand what had happened. The spirits, did they really want our help? I shook my head, trying to regain my focus. We can't just abandon them. They suffered for so long. "Sarah, listen," Mark said, urgency in his tone as he placed a hand on my shoulder. "Those spirits were angry and scared. If they're trapped, we can't save them by standing here. We need to find help." But a thought nagged at me. What if we can still communicate with them? The tree, it has to be connected in some way. Maybe we can dispel whatever is holding them. We can try again, but more carefully this time. Mark sighed, clearly torn. "You're not serious. We can't risk that again. It could—" "Mark!" I interrupted, a burst of determination pushing me through the fog of fear. "If we don't try, who will?" He searched my face before finally nodding. "Fine. We try your way, but it better not get us killed." Taking a deep breath, we stood and moved toward the tree, its twisted roots still pulsating with an unnatural energy. The air felt thick, charged with tension. I approached the base of the tree, kneeling and running my fingers over its gnarled bark. I closed my eyes, trying to channel the urgency, the pain I had sensed from the spirits before. "What do you need? Please tell us how to help you." The whispers returned, soft at first, then growing louder. "Free us. The curse. The heart of the tree." I could almost feel a rhythmic pulse in the air, a heartbeat echoing from deep within the roots. "Mark, do you hear that?" He nodded, but his eyes were wide with fear. "The heart. We need to find it." I stood up, my resolve strengthening. If we can reach the heart of the tree, maybe we can break the curse. But before we could move, a figure stepped out from behind the tree. My breath caught. It was a woman, her hair long and wild, her eyes dark like the shadows that surrounded her. She seemed to shimmer, barely distinguishable from the tree's bark. "Leave," she hissed, her voice a low growl. "You cannot help them." A chill ran down my spine. We had awoken something far more dangerous than we expected. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling. "We want to help. Only pain comes from the heart," she warned. "Leave, or suffer the same fate." Then she gestured toward the shadows, and they writhed as if responding to her command. I stood frozen, paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. Something dark was coming, and it was clear we had to decide fast. I glanced at Mark, his face taut with uncertainty. We were at a crossroads. The woman before us radiated a power that made my skin crawl. "We can help," I repeated, but even as I said it, doubt crept in. "Sarah, she's dangerous," Mark whispered, inching closer to me. "We need to go, now." I considered his words. My heart raced, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we needed to find the heart of the tree. The spirits were still in pain. "I can't. If we leave now, we might lose our chance," I insisted, my voice steadying with resolve. The woman's eyes narrowed. You do not understand. The heart is not a salvation. It is a trap, and you are not strong enough to face it. Suddenly a gust of wind kicked up, leaves swirling around us. I felt it pull at my limbs, urging me to retreat. Mark grabbed my arm, trying to pull me back, but I stood my ground. "You've suffered long enough," I yelled at the woman. "Let us help." Her expression shifted, the shadows around her flickering like a candle's flame. "Help comes at a cost," she warned, her voice echoing through the clearing. "Will you pay the price?" "What price?" I dared to ask, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity. "Your lives," she said simply, "or your free will." Mark's grip tightened on my arm, and I could feel the tension in his body. "We need to go, Sarah. This isn't worth it." "Isn't it?" I shot back. "What if helping them was the only way to free myself from the weight of this place? I can't just walk away." As I stared at the woman, a flicker of pity crossed my mind. Was she a prisoner too? "If we set you free, will you let us go?" My heart raced, the gamble feeling monumental. She tilted her head slightly, considering my words. "Freedom comes with knowledge. If you reach the heart, you will learn what binds us. But be warned, the heart knows every fear you possess. It will use that knowledge against you." "And if we fail?" Mark asked, voice low and intense. "Then your souls will join the endless night," she replied, the shadows around her twisting in a grotesque dance. "No, Sarah, we can't take that risk," Mark argued, desperation creeping into his tone. But I couldn't ignore the pull. There was something deeper here, a connection that tugged at my very being. What if we can save them both, us and the spirits? I turned my gaze back to the woman. "You have to let us try." Her lips curled into a haunting smile, revealing more depth to her darkness. In that moment, shadows emerged from the tree, swirling ominously at our feet. "Then you will face what you fear the most. If you are brave enough, seek the heart. If not," she paused, her smile widening, "you will remain lost, like us." A shiver ran down my spine as I finally understood. We weren't just seeking freedom for others. This wouldn't end until we confronted our own fears. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath us. I stumbled, grasping for stability as the shadows elongated, reaching for Mark and me. "We don't have a choice," I shouted over the growing chaos. "We have to find it." Then everything went dark. When I opened my eyes again, the darkness had lifted. I lay on damp ground, the air thick with the scent of moss and decay. A soft light filtered through the canopy above, revealing a small clearing surrounded by ancient trees. Mark was next to me, still unconscious, but his chest rose and fell steadily. Thankfully, he was alive. Panic surged within me as I recalled the chaos of moments ago. I had to wake him. "Mark, come on, wake up." I shook him gently, urgency flooding my voice. His eyes blinked open, bewilderment creeping over his features. "What? Where are we?" "I don't know, but I think we're safe from the woman and the shadows." My heart raced, but a sliver of hope began to flare inside me. "I think we made it to the other side." Mark sat up, rubbing his eyes. "You mean we actually escaped?" "Maybe." I scanned the clearing, noticing the stillness around us. It felt almost peaceful compared to the chaos we'd just endured. "But where are the spirits? What happened to them?" He shook his head, confusion mixing with weariness. "I can't comprehend. It feels like we were never meant to." Before he could finish, a low hum resonated through the air, surrounding us like a soothing blanket. It was a call, as if the forest was alive and beckoning us toward its depths. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. Mark nodded, standing to survey our surroundings. "Yeah, it sounds like they're singing." The hum grew louder, yet its melody was tinged with sorrow and urgency. "I think we should follow it," I suggested, feeling a pull toward the sound. Somehow it felt like a connection, a bridge between us and whatever we had set free. "Are you serious?" Mark hesitated, anxiety trembling in his voice. "This could be a trap." "It could be," I admitted. "But what if it's a way to help them? We can't abandon them now." With a reluctant sigh, he relented, stepping closer to me. "All right, but I'm not letting go of you. We ventured in the direction of the melody, weaving through the trees as the hum transformed into whispers, invoking a strange sense of familiarity. Help us. They seemed to beckon again, yet they also held a tenderness, far less insistent than before. As we walked, the light around us shifted, exposing glimpses of colorful wildflowers and luminescent fungi that danced with life. It felt surreal, like wandering through a dreamscape. I couldn't help but think back to the figures we had encountered, trapped by their anguish. I felt something shift deep within me, understanding, compassion, but also an unresolved tether to their pain. "Do you think they're still here?" I murmured, the echoes of shadows lingering in my mind. "I don't know," Mark replied quietly, glancing around with uncertainty. "What if we've drawn them too far? Or what if we're being led into danger again?" Despite my own fears swirling inside, I had to press onward. We need to find out. And we did. As we reached the center of the clearing, the forest opened up dramatically before us. The hum swelled into a beautiful harmony, combining the notes of nature and longing, echoing from the heart of the twisty, gnarled tree at the center. "Look at it," I breathed. It was magnificent and terrifying, its roots sprawling wide, enveloped in a soft glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. "It's beautiful." Mark shook his head, still in awe of its presence. What could be waiting inside? With every instinct screaming that this was a point of no return, I took a cautious step toward the tree. We have to try to connect with it. It could hold the key. As I approached, whispers brushed against my skin, growing louder with each step. "Help us. Release our pain. Show us mercy." I hesitated, feeling the weight of all the lives intertwined with this tree. Mark caught up beside me, his breath hitching as he also came under the tree's allure. "Sarah, But before he could finish, the tree shimmered, and suddenly, memories flooded my mind. Visions of those trapped spirits, their anguish echoing in my heart. "Wait, I see them," I gasped, steadied by the realization. "They're not just lost, they're waiting for us to understand." "What do you mean?" Mark asked, his voice catching up with the urgency of the moment. "They've been bound by their pain. If we delve deeper, maybe we can reach the heart, and maybe, just maybe, we can free them." The ground beneath us trembled softly, as if urging us onward. I closed my eyes, feeling the thrum of the tree's power beneath my fingertips. "We need to confront our fears," I whispered, recalling what the woman had said. Her threat had been a reflection of what awaited us. "Do you think we're really strong enough?" Mark's eyes were wide with doubt, but I could also see the flicker of hope within him. "I believe we are," I replied, forcing certainty into my words. "We can face this together, we have to." Taking a deep breath, I laid my hand against the rough bark, a connection binding me to the tree. "We seek the heart," I called out, voice steady. "Please show us the truth." The ground shook again and the light from the tree shifted. I felt a tugging, pulling me into the depths of what lay within. "Hold on!" I shouted, fear flaring up. Mark's hand clasped mine, and together we stepped into the glow. Everything was chaotic, images swirling, raw emotions flooding over me, pain, suffering, regret. But beneath it all, I felt the faint traces of hope, a yearning for release. All the spirits, every single one woven into this moment, cried out, "Free us." In the depths of my mind, echoes of the lost whispered their stories, and one became a mantra I couldn't ignore. With all the courage I could muster, I reached for the heart, a pulsating truth hidden at the center of their bindings. "Let us help you," I whispered, feeling the heart resonate through me. I had to believe that understanding could break the chains they wore. In a moment that felt like eternity, the air surged around us. The energy coiled tight, intertwining our pain with theirs. As one, we faced the darkness that enveloped the roots, ready to free ourselves and those intertwined with the tree. Then, with a fierce pull, light erupted from the heart, shattering the shadows around us. Pain lost its grip, and I felt the light envelop me. But in the intensity of it all, I wasn't sure what would remain once the horrid chains broke. Would Mark and I find freedom, or merely step deeper into the unknown? The light glimmered in whispers of release, yet still so fleeting. As darkness swirled, making space for the light, I surrendered to it, feeling the fighting breath of the spirits echoing alongside my own. And I knew then, we had to trust in the unknown. Everything faded to white. When I came back, I found myself gasping for breath. We lay sprawled on the forest floor, and I could see Mark's eyes blink open, confusion written all over his face. Did we? He trailed off, staring into space. Did we set them free? It felt monumental, but also haunting, a bittersweet victory. I nodded slowly, unsure of what was truly happening. I hope we did. But beyond that hope, I could see the uncertainty lingering, the ambiguity about what we had truly faced. The tree remained rooted in the heart of the woods, its mysteries still half hidden beneath a veil of nature. In that moment of stillness, I realized I didn't have all the answers. What we witnessed might remain shadowed in memories. The shadows that once loomed large over us melted into the background, lingering like a distant echo. Whatever had drawn me into the woods, whatever had angered the spirits, was now only a whisper. Clutching Mark's hand tight, I took a deep, steadying breath, feeling the warmth of my freedom mingle with lingering questions. As we stood, dust and dirt brushing against our clothes, I glanced back at the tree, beautiful, haunting, and ever enigmatic. Whatever happened, we changed something, I murmured, though peace was far from my grasp. Mark looked back and then faced me, the uncertainty in his eyes reflecting my own thoughts. But did we really free them? Or is it just the beginning? And as we stepped forward into the unknown, I couldn't shake the feeling that these woods held more secrets, ones we had only begun to unravel. Perhaps we wouldn't find peace anytime soon, but we did find a connection to the other side that urged us forward. I moved forward cautiously, wondering if the shadows would always linger, always demand answers. But now, as I walked hand in hand with Mark, I finally felt brave enough to embrace whatever would come next. Because sometimes, not knowing was part of the whole journey. And despite everything, I still felt alive.